It is Texans-Jaguars week from HoustonTexans.com. Texans radio sideline reporter and analyst John Harris is with us. Hey, here we are. Nice to see you. Happy Thanksgiving to you. What's up?
Happy Thanksgiving to you too, JP, man. It's good to see you. This trip is always a fun one for me, no matter what happens on the field, because I get back, I get to see some of my guys I coached many, many years ago, just on the other side of the banks of the St. John's River at Episcopal High School. So it's always kind of weird when I'm wearing my Texans logo because, when the Jaguars started as an organization, the Oilers went away. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm in Jacksonville. Let's jump on the Jacksonville train. So I've been a Jacksonville fan for a long time, of course, until I got with the Texans, and then I had to hate them because that's just AFC South dynamics.
No, I know. I'm aware. What years were you at Episcopal?
I got there in 1994, and I was the junior high coach, and then I took over. I did a stint at Bishop Kenny. I did a stint at Bowles, and then I got back to Episcopal, became the head varsity coach in 1998. So, it's been a long time when the number at the beginning of that year is a 19. So it's a long time ago. So I was there for 3 years. We got to the playoffs for the first time in school history, my third year. So I always have that little feather in my cap, so to speak. But I love Jacksonville. I love everything about the city. It was good to myself, my wife and I met there. We met at Episcopal. We had our first son there. So Jacksonville always strikes at the heartstrings so very much. So that makes this a fun trip, yet a tough trip because we love Jacksonville. We love Jacksonville so much.
John Harris with us from Texans Radio. Well, it's not only been good for you personally, of course, away from the field, but for the Texans on the field. 9 out of the last 10 road games against the Jaguars have been wins for the Texans. One of those was at Wembley Stadium in London, of course, the rest here in Jacksonville. Why is that? Why is it all of a sudden that the Texans come here and play well? There's been some good teams and not so good teams with the Jaguars.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of the same way when the Colts come to Duval County. The Colts get spanked for whatever reason. I mean, I don't know. It's an odd one. I think it's just as matched up at times where the Texans, have played well in some of those games, and they've had some good teams over the years. But there's that lull that we had that from 2020 through 22 where we caught the Jaguars at the wrong time for the Jaguars. We weren't a very good team, but the Jags weren't very good. Even in 22, they really hit the hot streak after we played them in Jacksonville. So I don't know if there's anything that really, any rhyme or reason to it, but it's probably similar to the Colts. Colts go down there to Duval County like, oh man. The Texans go down there and like, okay, we're good. We'll win. We'll be okay. But look, there's nobody in this building right now, considering the way that we played the last few weeks, that is going, oh, we're going down there. We got a guaranteed victory. Like, no, not at all. There might have been a few of those going into last week against the Tennessee Titans, but those people have either shut up, left the building, or have been muted. So they don't have anything to say. We all had an idea, like, this is a division game. This is going to be tough. But I think it was probably even tougher than we thought because Will Levis did play pretty well. And that was not what he did the 2 times we faced them in 2023. He played pretty well. He hit some deep shots, and that kept them in the game. And then we just couldn't do anything offensively in the second half. So this team, this organization in this building, the people in this building know going over to Jacksonville after the Jags coming off a bye week with the talent the Jags have in the building. Our guys are preparing for a fist fight. There's no question about that, no matter what the records are.
John, what's going on the offensive side with the CJ Stroud? And they've got Mixon back. He wasn't here in the first meeting. Nico
That's
Collins
right.
went off in that game statistically. They had to rally late and win the game. They did it. What's been going on the last few weeks with CJ? Where is he?
Well, CJ said it as presser after the game. He just said it point blank to the media. He said, "I'm just not playing well right now." And I think there's, how do I say this? I don't think there's as much truth to that statement as he wants it to believe. He threw a couple interceptions. I think the first interception he threw was more on the receiver than it was on him. Second one was all him. But he's the kind of guy that is going to internalize the offense's issues. I know the talk nationally after the game was, oh, CJ Stroud, sophomore slump, all this. And I really was upset because I was like, CJ's really made some good throws and made some good throws in that game and really did some good things that we're accustomed to seeing. And so I went back and I watched every single throw, and I'm like, man, people are missing the boat on this. He did make a couple of kind of non CJ like throws, but I don't buy this whole sophomore slump thing. I think the sophomore slump has come about, if you want to say that, in large part because the protection just hasn't been where it's needed to be. And I know that, Trevor has gone through that at times where he's had some struggles, and you could attribute some of those to the offensive line not playing as well as it probably should have in front of him. I think what's been the Texans' issue is that offensive line has made CJ basically go through quarterback hell. I mean, he drops, and as soon as he hits his back foot, he's having to run or throw it away or do something, kind of go into hero ball mode just to get the ball off. And that's a shame because receivers have been open. He just hasn't had that time. He's gotten sped up a little bit because that pressure is getting to him. Simulated pressures have been a monster. Our guys have not picked it up. So we've not had an offensive line that's played exceptionally well in front of him consistently enough to keep CJ on track. So we got to go down there and you'll find every ounce of energy, hopefully get this win before we go into the bye week. But it's not going to be easy, and it's definitely not the team that I wanted to face going into a bye, them coming out of a bye and playing at their place.
Right. John Harris with us, Texans Radio. Defensively, Will Anderson's been hurt a bunch of the year, came back last week, couple sacks. They were all over Levis in the first half, obviously. But Danielle Hunter's been playing well, seems like statistically. Where are they on the defensive side? They're taking the ball away some, it feels like. Where does this rank defensively? Can this group maybe carry the load while the offense figures it out?
Well, to this point, they've carried the load. I feel bad for them that they should have never lost the Detroit game. I mean, put it this way. In fact, our good buddy Drew Doherty, who you know, JP, he sent me an email. He said, we picked off Detroit 5 times and lost. We sacked Will Levis 8 times, had 2 turnovers and a pick 6, and lost to the Titans. So this defense, and I've seen some good ones here in Houston, but I think from front to back to front, it's as good a defense as I've seen here. Because for a lot of those years we had good defenses, we had J.J. Watt, and it was J.J. doing the solo singing, and then everybody else was, it was Gladys Knight and the Pips, basically. This group is, it's everybody getting a shot at the mic. This is like Wu-Tang. Everybody gets a shot with bars. Everybody gets to spit some bars, and away you go. But it's really starting to evolve into Danielle Hunter being dominating. I mean, dominating. JP was as good as I've seen a Texans defensive end pass rusher ever the last 2 weeks against Dallas and then against Tennessee ever. I mean, he's phenomenal. It's one of the best free agent signings we've ever had. Will's now getting back into the fold. We're getting some good play from guys that maybe weren't expecting on the interior. We will miss Jalen Petrie. That will hurt. Jalen was kind of a chess piece. They would use him at nickel. They'd move him around. He'd play with a linebacker. He'd blitz. He'd drop. He'd cover. He'd tackle. Physical presence. We're going to miss him. He's going to be out with a shoulder injury, so that's going to be a big one. And how we kind of adapt to that going forward is going to be tough. So don't know what his progress is going to be going forward, but I know he's going to definitely miss this game. And we'll miss him. But Derek Stingley has turned into arguably the best corner in the league. He's phenomenal. But they also last week gave up some deep shots. And if it does have an Achilles heel, and you know this, it's the deep shots. We gave up a few to Jacksonville, and that was a killer. And it really was what gave Jacksonville life. And it's what gave Will Levis and Tennessee life the other day, just giving up those deep shots. So got to keep the ball in front, rally the football. It's as fast and as quick a defense as I can remember seeing here in Houston. And I know people will say, well, he gave up points. And, but if you look at what they've done, I know the Jags just saw Jared Goff the other day, and that was a week after we had played him. We picked him off 5 times, and he completed 50% of his passes. In fact, Levis is the only guy to complete over 60% of his passes this year against the Texans at NRG Stadium. And he did it with ease, really. And he did it with the deep ball. And so that does worry me a little bit because Trevor did miss some deep balls. They got behind us. And whether it's Trevor or Mac, we don't know. But I got a feeling they're going to try to exploit us with the deep ball again because if we do have an Achilles heel on defense, that's it.
Final thought. How do you like dealing with DeMeco Ryans?
I love the man. I absolutely, I love him. I love everything about him. I think he's got his finger on the pulse of this team and knows how everybody in this organization moves, ticks. I mean, he's a positive guy by nature. He obviously played linebacker here for the Texans. His wife is from north of Houston, so Houston really kind of spoke to him. I mean, we couldn't have gotten it better. I know he's been frustrated lately because he just hasn't gotten quite the play from especially his offensive line that he really wants. His defensive line, he was a little upset with. He holds them to a high standard. You know, Tony Pollard had such a good first half against us, but he's the guy that everything fell into place. We had Nick Caserio here, and Nick was doing a great job. But when DeMeco was hired to team with Nick, and then you started making a few free agent signings, and then obviously the draft of 23 where you get C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson Jr., it's like, okay, the pieces are being put together. Those guys work really, really well together, and it's been really fun to be around both of them. They're extremely competitive, but they're positive. I love working with him. I love working with DeMeco. It's been great this year because I get a halftime interview with him. We've only trailed at halftime twice. Once was the Minnesota game where everything went sideways, and then the other day against Tennessee. I would never expected it, but he's always gracious with his time. He's always very thankful. He knows I have a job to do. He knows we have a job to do. He allows us to do it and be a positive light. Whereas there have been other head coaches that have been in here that I even knew. I was a teammate in college of a guy, and it was, the direct opposite. So dealing with, DeMeco on a daily basis, you see him in a hallway. Although I'll tell you a great story about DeMeco. So during preseason, I got a chance to go up and do games in the booth for our preseason TV. And so we didn't do the first game because that was the Hall of Fame game. So we went to Pittsburgh. So we spent a week up in Ohio. Then we went to Pittsburgh. So we all get off the buses. We drive to Pittsburgh and we go for a production meeting. And I don't know if he knew I was calling a game, but I was in there with the team, and so we just do production meeting, no big deal. So after the game, I was still going to do all my radio stuff, which is number one, to get a post-game interview with him after the game. So I leave the TV booth, I go down, we do our interview, I get done, and the first thing he says to me is, "Hey man, how was the booth?" And I was like, wow. I mean, I never would have thought that registered, but I'm like, I said, Coach, I said I kept it clean, which is good, which is a rarity for me. And I made sure not to criticize anything you did tonight. He just chuckled. But the fact that he remembered that, I thought was really cool, and that he was really excited about it for me. And then we did production meetings for the next two preseason games. And so it was just really cool that he remembered that. He thought that was a really cool thing, and, thought of me, and just the big old smile lights up the room. So he and Nick Caserio, the McNair family, made a lot of changes. They're the reason that we're in this position to be better than we were through 2020 through 2022. We just have to now, the boulder's up there. We got to, it's that push over the top because of the teams in the AFC South since, since 2000, but since the AFC South, came to existence, all three teams in the division that aren't Houston have gone to the AFC Championship game. Even though we won the most division titles, I think, since 2011, we have not been to an AFC Championship game. So that's got to change. We got to get to that point. I think we're moving in that direction. But losing a game to the Jacksonville Jaguars is not something that anybody will be happy about for sure. So I know DeMeco, when I asked him on Monday, I said, you got 24-hour rule for wins and losses, right? But this one seems to sting a little bit. And he's like, yeah, it should. And he goes, I'm hoping that it stings all these guys. And I'm going to be reminding them of it during the week that we don't want that feeling again after Sunday. So hopefully that message gets sent. Hopefully it gets received, and we can go to Jacksonville and go toe to toe with Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker and hold our own.
John, great stuff as always, and I'll wish you the best of luck after this week. How about
Yes,
that?
absolutely. Same goes, JP. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.